Just bear with me, Chair. Okay, Chair, you're live on YouTube whenever you're ready.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the exec meeting here today. The first thing is, I don't know whether we've got any apologies for absence. Could someone let me know whether we've had any apologies today?
There's no apologies, Chair.
Okay. Next thing is we had some, do we have any declarations of interest? Anything to declare today from anybody? Okay, I take that as a no, thank you. The next one then we need to look at quickly is the minutes of the last meeting. They've been disseminated, so everyone should have had a look. Does anybody feel that they aren't a true record? Let me know now if they aren't a good record of the last meeting. Please let me know. I'll give you eight seconds. 5, 1, done. Okay, so that's all good. So the first item on the agenda then is actually in an unusual order, number 13, and that's I guess coming from Councillor Dennis McCabe and Jeff Field.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is a report coming to the executive for approval today for fortnightly residual waste bin, the black bin collections. This follows a public consultation which was completed on the 31st of October 2020. Bit of background to this. This is part of a cornerstone of our green strategy and is significant beyond the government's target for recycling. One of the significant minority councils that collect weekly, we are way behind on this. There's 13% of the councils still on weekly collections, and we need to go to fortnightly connections. This will hopefully increase our recycling rate and reduce our CO2 emissions. This will be given a savings of £322,000 per annum. The consultation was conducted and we had 3,309 responses, which equates to 5.8% of the residents or the properties. Many of the concerns were raised over how much waste would be generated over a fortnight, and the majority of questions were, will we be given a larger bin to accommodate this? And the answer is yes. So with this and the recommendations in the report, I would like to put this forward, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Open it for a discussion with exec members. First of all, what I'd like to say before anyone is just I realise this is an unpopular move, and it's driven by a few things, and definitely popularity isn't one of them. What it's driven by is we need to give value for money. We need to find a way of doing more with less money. The story in local government for years and years is less and less money. And it's no point in us bleating about it. We've got to take action and do stuff. This is not an action for the faint-hearted. It's not going to win you votes, but it is absolutely the right thing to do. There is no other thing that we can do that will save hundreds of thousands of pounds. Every year, over 10 years, it's going to save millions of pounds. It will also reduce our carbon footprint. We're in a desperate mood to do that, to show leadership with our environmental credentials. And we also need to up our recycling rates. Our recycling rates are some of the poorest in the whole country. And it's not a coincidence places with poor recycling tend to have weaker collections. So what we're going to do is we're going to be giving everyone a bigger bin. We're going to be listening to people. We're going to make sure we collect green waste regularly. We're going to be allowing people to recycle. We're going to give guidance. We're going to help people. If people still can't manage, we'll find a way of working with you. And we will absolutely step in line with all of the other councils. Darlington, Hartlepool, Durham, Sunderland, Newcastle, South Tyneside, North Tyneside, Newcastle, Gateshead, everywhere else, there's a fortnightly connection, and we're going to do the same. It's going to save money. We're going to recycle. We're going to have a better carbon footprint. And I'll say again, I know it's not popular. I know previous regimes have chickened out of taking this decision, but because I'm not here and because the exec aren't here to be, we're taking this action. And the very last thing I'll say is that This has been proposed a number of times by officers as the best way of saving money, and previous exec teams have failed to have the bottle to do it. We're cracking on. We're doing it. We are now to exec members. I know Dorothy Davison, I think, was first. Dorothy, would you like to speak?
Please, Dorothy Davison. Can you confirm, Councillor McCabe, that if anybody requests a larger bin, they will get one? And also, can you let us know when this will actually happen? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. It will, obviously, if you request a larger bin, you will be provided with a larger bin at no cost, obviously. We'll take away the smaller one. If need be, if it's a large family, we can also leave the smaller bin there as well if they're struggling. And we're planning to implement this in the new year, at the start of the financial year.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Dorothy?
Thank you very much, Dennis.
Good stuff. Okay, I can see that Councillor Chris Hobson is looking to speak. Chris, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Dennis, is it also being said that if they want extra blue bins, they can have them at no further cost? And I would also like to say that this is also to do with climate change. We should be looking at climate change. We should be recycling as much as we possibly can. And I for one, will be backing this. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor, if needed, and if anybody needs an extra blue bin, they'll be provided, because it's all about education, and we'll be running a programme as soon as this is approved. We'll get out there and we'll put an educational programme together to help people, and if need be, we can go around and advise residents what they can do and what they can't do to help the recycle rates and reduce the amount of waste in the bins and stop fly tipping.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you again, Dennis. Chris, anybody else with questions from the exec?
Yeah, Councillor Waters, apologies, my camera's been, my picture's been awful. It's just a quick one, Dennis, Councillor McCabe. Could you just confirm that the alleys will be still collected weekly where we have alley bins, just so that we don't go further backwards with that?
Thank you, Councillor Waters. The alley bins, the large commercial bins we have, there will stay weekly collections. There was no intention of altering that weekly collection cycle because of the amount of waste in them.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Dennis. I can see Councillor Hobson wants to come in and speak there, but is there anybody else whose camera isn't on who hasn't spoken yet from the exec?
I'd like to speak, Chair, but I'm happy for Councillor Hobson to go first.
Okay, that's very good. Okay, you go ahead, Chris, and then we'll...
Thank you, Chair. Just one other thing to clarify the fact about black bags, Councillor McCabe. I do believe that we're still going to, anybody that uses the black bags instead of the recycling bin will also be collected on a weekly basis. Is that correct?
Thank you, Councillor. Where black bin bags are issued and are on a weekly cycle, we will collect them on a weekly cycle as normal, but we will try and change that over to black, bins where possible.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chris and Dennis. Anthony, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, as it's been highlighted by yourself, Mayor, that this is quite a difficult decision for us all to be looking at from an executive point of view. And I'm a little bit surprised that it's been this late, really, in the delivery of this particular piece of work, considering, as Councillor McCabe has highlighted, 85% of the UK have already taken these measures to have them implemented across the UK. I need to step forward and say, whilst that I do understand the environmental benefits and the requirement of this for the environment, I also totally understand the financial decision that needs to be made in relation to this particular paper. Whilst the response was low in terms of consultation, there was a number of main areas that were highlighted through the consultation. And I know of my communication with the general public that there was some significant concerns that were there. Now, throughout the report, the local authority and the council have highlighted key areas of mitigation against the concerns raised. So it's very clear that there's a response for the significant areas of concern from the general public. But I need to bring forward, on behalf of my ward, wider Middlesbrough and the MIG group that I represent, a number of key concerns that I have and a number of points that I want to put forward to the officers that will be directly responsible for the implementation of this shift. And I want to raise these just as concerns, but as items for the officers to ensure picked up and addressed with pretty much instantly, and reassure the general public that the response from Middlesbrough Council on these points will be efficient and effective right across the town going forward. The first one is bigger bins. There's a lot of confusion right across the town in relation to that particular area. I think it is necessary and essential that we have bigger bins in place, actively used, before we step to the fortnightly shift that has been proposed. So therefore, anyone and everyone who wants a bigger bin is using that bin before we take the step across to prevent any difficulty. The second is everybody who needs and wants an extra recycling bin to support the environmental impact that we're hoping to achieve can receive that recycling bin well before we make the transition into fortnightly collections. So we're not just obviously recycling is fortnightly now, but to support the waste, we need those recycling bins distributed right across the town. We also need a more effective and appropriate forgotten bins response, if I could name it that. So where bins have been missed, or where somebody might not have got the bin out in the evening, maybe slept in, for many different reasons. Sometimes we just don't get it out. We need an effective way for the general public to be able to raise the issue that their bin has not been collected. We cannot have a set of circumstances where people are waiting up to 4 weeks for their waste to be removed. If I miss my bin now, I manage, it's difficult, but I know that it's going to be shifted again within a week. We cannot have people waiting for up to 4 weeks, so we need a response and a team to be able to administer that. In addition, we need to ensure that fly tipping response and approach is improved or expanded. So where individuals do decide to wrongfully distribute their waste, we actively, and the teams are proactively looking to target those areas and remove any potential waste in the town. And finally, and certainly not least, we need to discuss and improve our vermin management approaches. So one of the issues that was highlighted was the potential increase of rats, mice and other vermin. We need to ensure as a local authority we have an appropriate response and support across the town to effectively respond where necessary if there's an increase in vermin anywhere in Middlesbrough. It is a tough one. But I just need to put that on record that these critical areas are picked up for the people of my ward, the people of wider Middlesbrough and the MIG group that I actively represent. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. I think that all makes complete sense. And actually, a point on the vermin that I'll just come in. People may have seen that there's been a national problem this year, a succession of some mild winters. The lockdown led to more eating at home, more rubbish around, more takeaways. So there's been a proliferation of rats around the whole country and Middlesbrough. What we've done there is, I know we've invested in training. We've got more staff being trained dealing with it. So people, please bear with us. It's a national problem. We are putting money to it to try and solve it. And Anthony's raised a very good point there. We need to be on top of that game. Okay, great. Thank you. I don't think there's anybody else looking to speak at this point. I'm going to ask if Sorry, Councillor McCabe, did you want to come in?
Yeah, just yes, Chair. I'd just like to clarify some of them points. I think it's a very good idea to bring the bins in before we implement this. So if people need these bins, they need to contact the contact centre, and we'll start distributing them out, and we'll see how it goes from there. The bin response, we have a system, and I totally agree with Councillor High that if we miss a bin, it's going to be for a month. I've been addressing this in the last fortnight with a couple of missed bins around the town, and our response hasn't been the best, but we have got a system in place, and this will be up and running very, very shortly. We're tweaking it this week to respond to this, so hopefully we can do that. We also have an in-cab login system, so if they pass a property and the bin isn't out, and then they ring in and say, you've missed me bin, we know if you've left your bin out or you've not left your bin out. So it isn't always us who miss them. Sometimes, like Councillor I said, you do forget to put them out. The fly tipping, I'm now working with the director and legal to see what responses we can do with this. I've brought this up in a previous meeting, and we're trying to use covert cameras on the high hotspots throughout the town to catch these people and bring them to court and highlight the fact that we are watching what you're doing, and we will penalise you for it, because it costs hundreds of thousands of pounds a year to clear fly tipping up. Average cost of a fly tip is £1,000 a visit. So when these people are doing it, it's costing us as taxpayers £1,000 each time. The vermin, like the chair has said, the mayor, we are training all our staff up, and area care staff are getting trained on vermin control. So you'll have your local area care chaps working in your area, and they'll be aware and they'll be trained up to bait and hopefully get on top of this problem. Chair, thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. All of the exec members have now spoken. If there's an elected member who's on this meeting to make a really, really quick point, I'm afraid I'm going to have to limit it to a couple of people only to make comments, and very quick points only. Please go ahead.
There are no other members on there.
Okay. Thank you for that. So in that case then, what I want to do is, rather than a big vote, lots of confusion, if there's anybody who would like, who disagrees with this action that's proposed, please let me know now. Okay, it's nobody. If there's anybody to abstain from the vote, please let me know. Okay, thanks. So that's all agreed. That's been voted in. Thank you very much for that. So we go back now, Sylvia, could you guide me? We'll go back to the first point now, which is item 4. Is that right?
Sorry, my mute wasn't working. Yeah, go back to the first item now, Chair.
Okay, that's great. So this is coming from myself and Head of Finance, Ian White. I'll probably, if it's okay with it, Ian, if he's on the call, is Ian on the call?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
I'm on the call.
Thank you. What I'll do is I'll give a tiny bit of background, and then I might ask Ian to give a little bit more information about the financial situation and how we got to this, and then we'll ask for questions. But the gist of this is that we need to decide next year how we're going to balance our books. We have to balance our books, whether you're a household, an individual, a business, or a huge government. If you don't balance your books, before long you're down and out. So balance books is the only choice we have, and it's a question of how we do that. There are very we can do. We can cut lots of jobs if we want to save money. We can cut lots of services if we want to save money, or we can increase council tax to increase our income, or we can do a combination of those things. What we're doing at the moment, we've had a look, and as an executive, we've decided that the best thing we think at this point to start the conversation, this process of budget consultation, is really to propose protecting as many single jobs as possible and protecting all services. And to make that possible, despite the fact we've had to find savings, significant savings elsewhere, to make it all possible and balanced for us to stay legal and proper, is that we'd need to have an increase in council tax that would amount to something like £1 a week for most households. Now, I appreciate it's a tough time to be doing this, but the alternative is cutting jobs and cutting services. Ian, would you like to say a few words as the financial expert?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, please, if that's okay. So this report brings an update to Executive of the Council's MTFP for the period up to 2023-24 and sets out the efficiency savings and proposed council tax increase for next year, 2021-22. It's for noting and endorsement by the Executive. It will be considered by full council on the 16th of December, and if approved, proposals will be subject to public consultation where required after that. I just wanted to say a few words about setting of a budget for a council in the COVID-19 environment, which is where we're at the moment, obviously. So there's a huge amount of uncertainty at the minute. The comprehensive spending review is due tomorrow from the Chancellor of the Exchequer, which will hopefully give us some more information. And we as a council would expect the detail of our settlement in mid to late December. And obviously a large degree of uncertainty around the position with the COVID-19 virus from the 1st of April onwards next year, which will impact our finances. We as a council have taken a prudent view to set up a provision for COVID cost and lost income and impact next year of £3 million. That seems sensible in the light of what we don't know. And we've also made prudent assumptions about levels of central government funding due to the financial pressure that the government is in at the moment, which I'm sure we all understand. Executive have then taken a view around their priorities, which is to protect services in vulnerable communities at a very vulnerable time at the moment, and to ensure that the council has provision to cope with the impact and pressures of the virus and its impact on the town of Middlesbrough. And through that, we've arrived at the proposed increase, which we will be consulting on, of 3.99% in council tax. After this meeting, there are briefings being arranged for members, all political groups, ahead of the full council for more detail to discuss this. And I do want to stress, because of that level of uncertainty, the assumptions in this report are very much subject to review. And if we get new information, we'll review our assumptions and come back to Executive and full council based on the light of new information. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll open now to exec members to, I can see Councillor Hobson's keen to speak. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. As you know, this is very, very difficult for me because I do try every year to say that the council tax shouldn't go up. I also believe that the residents at the moment are having a very difficult time. So it is a very difficult decision to make this year. I have actually written to Rishi Sunak to ask him for more money because our council tax is one of the highest and we have one of the most deprived wards. So I've explained all that to him. So I'm hoping when the settlement comes that we might get a better settlement. And if it does, then obviously, as Ian Wright said, we can always change things round. Obviously, we have to balance the budget. That is the main thing that we have to do. And we also really need to stop people from being made redundant if we can possibly do that. So with everything, we look at everything we can possibly look at. And we think that this is the best that we can come up with at the moment for the budget. But it is not written in stone. It will go out to consultation. People will be able to have their views on it and everything will be looked at. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I can add as well that, I mean, none of us, literally none of us want to see, if at all possible, any council tax increase. And this was a really tough thing for all of us. None of us wanted it. We all expressed strong opinions against it. In particular, I'll just name, councillors Chris Hobson and Dorothy Davison, who did make a really clear message and tried to fight this as we all did. But as we looked at our situations, we looked at the uncertainty ahead. We can't hand on heart move forward feeling that we're confident of our finances. And we want to protect services for vulnerable people. We need to protect jobs. We feel that this appears to be the best option, but we will definitely listen to the public. We'll definitely listen to all of the politicians, and anybody's welcome to come and give us feedback in the consultation process ahead. Anybody else like to speak? Okay, that's good, thank you. Ian mentioned that this was for noting, but Sylvia, on the notes that I had, it was for a vote. Which is it?
You're on mute, Sylvia.
Yeah, I pressed my button, but it won't work. Part of it is for Norton, and the second part is to endorse the actions that are in there. So they're asking for the executive to vote on that endorsement. Basically.
So thank you. So we've all discussed it. I think everyone's noted it. If anybody doesn't endorse this, can they let us know now, please? Okay, that's good. Thank you. So that's endorsed. Thank you for that. We're going to move to item 5, which is refreshing the strategic plan. That's really tough. I'm sorry, I'm having to move around between notes here on different screens. Apologies. I'm really sorry, but I can't get up my notes here. I mean, everybody will have seen these papers. I know that we've all discussed these things one-on-one in groups and in various ways. We've all looked at it. We've all had discussions with the CEO and other people. Any of the exec members have comments on the paper? Anybody want to vote against refresh of the strategic plan? And does anybody like to would anybody like to abstain against the refresh? Okay, so that's passed. That's voted for. Thank you for that. The next one, again, I'm afraid I can't see my notes. All I can see here is the actual very brief crib sheet here, number 6, which is approach to COVID-19 recovery. I don't know whether there's an officer present who'd like to give an overview. I know I've seen the notes, but an officer present who'd like to give an overview.
Hi, it's Tony. I can do that, Andy, if you would like me to.
Tony. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks. So, executive have previously approved the council's response to COVID-19 in terms of recovery. So our work to deal with the pandemic continues, but we also need to look at what Middlesbrough will be like and what the impact of COVID will be once there's a vaccine in place and life returns to something like normal. Because of the second wave, because of escalating rates throughout the town, then the potential impact is obviously deepened. So the purpose of this report is to take account of that and to centre our recovery efforts on a number of specific areas which are outlined within the report. So this is really just an update to our work on recovery that will help our businesses, our town and our communities deal with the impact of COVID. Once the world's learned to live with it, happy to take any questions.
Okay, any questions from the exec members? Okay, sorry, Dennis, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I was just Tony, do you know what the current rate is, please, for the infection rates in Middlesbrough?
So the latest figures today, I believe, shows at around about 307 positive tests per 100,000, Councillor McCabe, which is a reduction on the previous rate, but is obviously still high when compared to other areas of the country.
Thank you, Tony.
Dr. Davis, would you like to speak?
Yes. Thank you for this this report. Can I ask, has anybody any idea what tier we will go into in Middlesbrough? Because I know they're talking about tier 1, 2 and 3, but I presume we won't know until Thursday, like the government or Boris Johnson's just said. Is that correct?
Well, Tony may have been on a call more recently. Definitely nobody knows right now. There are certainly, there's talk around the whole of the North into tier 3. Our rate has come down from something like 507 to about 307, which is great. And thank you to everyone who's conformed, made an effort, sacrificed, some liberties to get that down. We are still higher than average in the country, so we've got to expect tier 2 or 3. And the rumours are tier 3, but till we're here Thursday, I don't know. I don't know if Tony Parkinson's heard more up to the minute info.
No, that's a very accurate summation, Andy. No confirmation as yet. We believe that we'll get confirmation on Thursday. Our planning assumption is most likely tier 3, but we won't know until we get formal notification on Thursday.
Thank you.
Any more comments or questions? Okay, now, Sylvia, I need some help here because we started talking about COVID. I've lost place as to which one that was. Was that the refresh of the plan or the revised approach to COVID recovery?
Revised approach to recovery. So basically what we're asking the executive to vote on now is that the executive notes the impact of the recent surge in cases of COVID-19. We're asking that in light of the executive approves the council's revised approach to COVID-19 recovery and notes the recovery metrics and measures, and the executive agrees the delegation of approval for minor amendments to in-quarter timescales against recovery measures and metrics and measure timescales via the recovery group, and any significant variations to approach and delivery will be reported and seek approval again from executive.
Thank you for that. So would anybody in the exec like to vote against this report? And would anybody like to abstain? Okay, so that's carried. Thank you for that, everyone. Now we're going to item 7, which is the strategic plan, progress and Q2. If Tony doesn't mind, I'll ask Tony to give a very quick overview. Is that okay, Tony?
Yeah, absolutely fine. It's actually Charlotte that's going to cover it, Andy. So Charlotte Benjamin's going to talk us through it.
Apologies. Go ahead, Charlotte.
Yes,
Thanks.
Chair, I can cover that if that's okay with you. So this report advises the executive of progress against the 2020-2023 strategic plan and outlines strategic risks at Q2 of 2021. Another report on today's agenda sets out how the strategic plan will be refreshed in the light of COVID-19, and we've heard about that report already. Good progress has been made in many areas of the strategic plan, even during the pandemic. Under the people aim, we're seeing positive progress on crime and antisocial behaviour, taking into account COVID restrictions, and a number of initiatives were launched in the quarter, including the expansion of CCTV. A green strategy was also launched in the quarter, which we hope will have significant contribution to our plans to tackle climate change. Positive progress in children's services was noted by Ofsted in its first monitoring visit, though there remains more to do. In terms of place, there was notable progress in respect of town centre living with the Gresham project, and in terms of economic development with the construction of Boho 8 commencing. In terms of the business aim, the major issue is the longer term impacts of COVID-19 on the local economy and the council's finances, which are addressed in detail in other reports on today's agenda. Risks in relation to a post-Brexit deal were escalated to the highest level during the quarter, though hopes of a deal are now greater as we approach the end of year deadline. A member briefing will be held on this issue in the coming weeks if appropriate. So in conclusion, Executive is asked to note 2 points. Firstly, the progress made in implementing the strategic plan in Q2 of 2020 to 2021, and also the ongoing and likely future impact of COVID-19 on strategic objectives where they're known at this stage. Secondly, in the light of the above, the Executive is asked to note the Council's updated strategic risk register, which is appended to the report at Appendix 1. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Charlotte. That's really great. Any questions or comments from executive members? Okay, that's great. And this is a report just for noting no votes. So everyone has obviously seen this in advance and listened to Charlotte there. So and had the chance to comment. So we'll take it that everyone's noted it. That's great. Thank you. On to number 8, which is Anthony Hyde, Deputy Mayor, to talk about Children's Services Improvement Programme.
Thank you, Chair. This paper is brought forward today for the Executive to note and approve in relation to the improvement journey we're currently on with Children's Services. As everybody is well aware, we are working through the recent Ofsted outcomes, which had the local authority set as inadequate. This paper is an oversight of the journey that we've currently been on, and I would like to hand over to the DCS to drive us through this improvement journey in the paper presented, just so she can give a strong operational insight in terms of some of the critical areas presented in the paper. So could I introduce Sue Butcher, please, the DCS for Middlesbrough. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor High. This report is to give the Executive an overview of the strategic and operational actions. It covers the period June to October 2020, and we are trying to give members a quarterly update as to the progress against the plan. There is a considerable amount of background in the report, which I won't dwell on. You will know that we had an inspection, a full Ofsted inspection last year. And that we had a commissioner appointed to us. The Commissioner, Peter Dwyer, recommended that there are reasonable grounds to conclude that this is not a local authority where an alternative delivery model is needed at this stage. So Middlesbrough retained control of its children's services. It's important to note that this period has been overshadowed by the COVID virus, and this has necessitated us working in different ways. Not just from home, but doing doorstep visits, virtual family time in terms of contact between children and their birth parents. And it's pleasing to note that Ofsted commended the local authority on their rigorous approach to safety planning for children during the COVID pandemic. And I would like to endorse that to my staff members, that they really did, and they really have and continue to work to safeguard children through these challenging times. The MASH disaggregated from Redcar in Cleveland, and that went live on the 1st of July. That was absolutely the right decision. Ofsted note that in their report, and also the Commissioner, who's been with us from the 9th to the 11th of November, has also indicated through that report, which is not yet public, that was a good thing to do. The biggest, I think, issue that has come through in the last 3 months has been capacity, and I'll just touch on that as we go through the other items on the report. So early help, you can see the demand has increased, and they've welcomed 2 members of staff to the Stronger Families, which is what we call early help here, from the voluntary and community sector. And those staff are employed by Safer Communities, but they'll be working through on a formal secondment agreement. So that really will help our practitioners with casework and delivering interventions. Also, I think it's right to commend that during the summer holidays, the Stronger Families offered a check-in service for families during the 6-week school summer holidays, really making sure that our vulnerable children are safe and were safe during that time. I'm very pleased to endorse to the executive that our Futures for Families project went live on the 7th of September when it was registered by Ofsted. The service is developing well, and we've had referrals that have been accepted for 39 young people, and support is being given to carers caring for 11 young people, and that's with the aim of preventing painful placement breakdowns. The service is currently working alongside the Innovate team, and they are supporting young people moving on from external residential placements. And at the time of writing this report, 3 young people were receiving support in terms of residential placements, whilst foster placements are being sourced. And that's bringing our children out of external placements back into Middlesbrough. And this has allowed children to continue to be cared for in Middlesbrough and to continue to attend school whilst longer term placements are being sought. There wasn't a formal launch event to Families for Futures, but we are looking at doing a soft launch and a virtual launch. We have a young person who has been working with us and is organising that soft launch. It's important to note, I think, that the corporate parenting strategy is at the point of sign off. And this is obviously a strategy which encompasses our permanency strategy, which is getting children to work to move them to their forever homes as swiftly as possible. And the sufficiency strategy is making sure that we have got the right places for them to be looked after. Young people, important to note the involvement of children and young people. And you can see that there's 4 items that they've been involved in. For example, reviewing the youth advocacy contract and reviewing the communications with young people, parents and carers. We have a website which is about to be launched. It'll be launched on Thursday this week, and I'm happy to send out links. And that will be a really proactive way of communicating, not just with children and young people, but communicating about the service. We have a mission statement and a logo. I think many of you will be familiar with the heart-shaped logo and the mission statement that Middlesbrough Children Matter. I'm keen to stress that that is sits underneath the council logo. It is part of, we are very much working and hopefully growing as part of the whole council. Innovate, this is on paragraph 18. We contracted 2 Innovate teams to support the assessment service and the safeguarding and care planning service. That came to an end, and it provided valuable additional capacity during the first wave of the pandemic. One of the teams has been recommissioned for a further 6 months, which began on the 2nd of July as a part of an Invest to Save initiative. We allocated 90 to 100 cases to that team, and they were about children in residential placements, as I've mentioned before. And we've had up to 74 people, young people in such placements. It's also looking at children and young people in fragile placements, as I've said, to prevent placement breakdown. Children needing to be settled into their permanent forever families, and children who are looked after, but are looked after at home with their parents. So we need to move on those care orders so that the child's no longer looked after when it's safe to do so. The Innovate project, particularly for children in external residential placements, is the first of its kind in a local authority. And actually, we're now beginning to share our practice with other local authorities, which I think is a big step forward. To date, the progress of the project has resulted in direct savings in year, estimated to be 385,000, with a full year effect on the next financial year of 797,000. But the most important aspect of this project is achieving permanence for children. I've talked about caseloads slightly, but that is at the moment our biggest hurdle in terms of change. We have got several initiatives in place to put capacity in place. Need to be very clear that this is actually, apologies for the phone, this is actually capacity that is well thought of. We've done a really good analysis of our demand, and we know what social workers we need to support us through this period. There have been some line management changes. Suffice to say that the team that I feel now is the senior team in children's services, and I mean across the whole of children's services, not just social care, is a strong team. It is working well together, and I think we are very well placed to take the improvement journey forward. In terms of governance and partnerships, we note that we come from a very low base. There is a change to Ofsted's improvement programme, so the next visit to Middlesbrough will not be a monitoring visit now. They've changed their regime post-COVID, but will be a focus visit, and that will take place any time between now and the end of March 2021. So they are keeping us on our toes, and that instead of focusing on one aspect of the directorate, will focus on the whole of the directorate and look at decision making. So that really is quite an expansion of the original remit. We've strengthened the Children's Trust Board, which is chaired by Rob Brown, who's the Director for Education, Prevention and Partnerships, and we've renewed it. We're bringing it in line to support the Middlesbrough Children Matter agenda. The South Tees partnership in terms of safeguarding is still in its infancy, but we are just beginning to make some progress in terms of strategic safeguarding work that needs to happen. We have a separate group that's looking at the impact of COVID. Our board is chaired, our multi-agency strategic improvement board continues to be chaired by John Pearce, who gives us a level of independence and independent scrutiny. And although it's not in the report, I would like to note that we now have a new improvement advisor called Stuart Smith. He's an very experienced DCS who is also working in other local authorities. He will be taking up the sort of interim role, as it were, in terms of working with us till the next Commissioner's report, which is in May. And we continue to have solid links with the Department of Education. That's a run through of our progress over the last 3 to 4 months, and I would like to recommend it to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Chair. Just before it goes to the room, I think it's only poignant that I highlight that we have had a lot of contact over the last couple of months from key governing bodies such as Ofsted and the Department of Education, where with the departments are working through rigorous scrutiny. There's a lot of pressure politically in terms of the direction. There is appropriate questions and challenge from all external partners and bodies. And I can say confidently that I am pleased with the progress to date. This is largely down to the commitment of the senior staff that are now in post and have been appointed to pick up the improvement journey, and also to the social care teams and staff right across the service. So I would just like to say, before we receive this report, as we are, a big well done to those who have been involved so far in the current steps that we are needing to take as a local authority about appropriate improvement for the children of the town. So with that, Chair, I'd like to close and obviously hand over to you in the room.
That's great. And it's really great to hear that there's some work, massive energy and commitment there. And obviously there's a long way to go from that low point of last November when Ofsted turned up. But it feels to me that we are turning things around. We've steadied the ship. We're starting to make gradual progress. And so long as that continues, then we're doing the right thing for all the kids at Middlesbrough. Fantastic to hear. Any questions from exec members? I can see Chris Hobson would like to speak. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to acknowledge the hard work that's gone into this. The report is a good report. We are now on a really good track. I think that when we come another 6 months, I can see that we will be in a good place. We're certainly still not in a good place at the moment, but we are working so hard for our children. This is not all about money. This is about our children and the way forward for them. I think this is a really good report. I've met with Sue and Rachel and Anthony, and we do know that they are certainly on the right track, but it is all down to the hard work of the team. So thank you, team, for all that you are doing. You are definitely on the right track, and we look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, well said. I think we all agree with that. Well said. Anybody else like chip in? I can just got a note here that Councillor Ashley Waters wants to speak. Please go ahead, Ashley. Maybe he doesn't.
Just
Ollie, Ashley.
Mute him.
I think he's still on mute, Chair.
I've sent the request to unmute him, Chair. Bear with me.
Thank you,
Mic's open
Chair.
now, Ashley.
Is it coming through? Can you hear me?
Yes, it's coming through, Ashley.
Yep, lovely. Thank you, guys. What an absolutely fantastic report this is, and genuinely gives me goosebumps just to see and hear the fantastic work being done by our exec and our directors in this service, and the changes that are being made, such positive, fantastic changes in such a hard time. And obviously it's been a really difficult time for everyone. What an absolutely fantastic report to bring to exec. So really well done, everyone, guys.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on this at this point? Okay, that's great. You have to vote on this one, I believe, Sylvia. So I'll ask if anybody seeks to vote against, please let me know. Would anybody like to abstain? Okay, that's good. So that is everyone's in approval then. Everyone's that movement to Children's Services Improvement Programme. That's fantastic. Staying with the same people now, the Deputy Mayor and Sue Butcher, to talk about the Invest to Save proposal and improving outcomes for children.
Thank you, Chair. I'm gonna drive the executive through this particular report, and if needed, pull Sue in any questions that I might need her to support with. I think, as it was highlighted through the information that Sue has shared within the room, there's been a number of key projects that have played a significant part in some of the shift that we've seen around practice. Now, one of the significant issues that we experienced or continue to experience with Children's Services is the extremely large bill and the very high costs that are associated to delivering this service, but also some poor practice that has been highlighted, rightly so, by Ofsted. Now, taking into consideration, we, particularly children that were accessing external care, we were spending in excess of £12 million a year from the annual budget, which is obviously taxpayers' money. It created a lot of frustration and concern in terms of being able to continue that level of spend and knowingly going into overspend just to try to provide the services that we are looking to give to children of Middlesbrough. We discussed an opportunity to look at an Invest to Save proposal, which would be aimed at reducing high cost placement and massively improving the outcomes for children in care. Now, the primary objective to this, whilst finances are important, was to improve the outcomes for children in care. So there was a number of children that we identified that were on there with an external providers that had been there for a long duration of time. And we wanted to re-engage and ensure that we could bring permanent and a better element of long-term care for those young people. To do that, an Innovate team was gathered to do a bespoke piece of work that would target these particular young people within the system. To talk about numbers, and it's never nice when mentioning children's services, but essential given this particular piece of work, In the first year, the spend has been around about 380k. That has looked to save the local authority to date around about £800,000. Now, the project was initially put forward to run for a 12-month period, and the reason for this paper is for us to agree as an executive to run this specific project for another 24 months. Within those 24 months, we will be doing a quarterly review to monitor and measure, firstly, the improvement of services for children, and secondly, the cost implications that we need to reverse for the local authority. It's envisaged that in the next 6 months, if we do agree this piece of work, that within the next 6 months of delivering this particular project, we will see around about 1.8 million worth of savings within the next 6 months, which is a substantial amount of money to any budget. If we look at the longevity of the 24 months, we are hopeful that we can potentially look to save or bring about a saving in the range of £5 million to children's services, which is a significant step forward in relation to our financial management of this particular area of responsibility for the local authority. Not to lose sight that the children receiving this service will be receiving a bespoke, specialist and detailed level of delivery to ensure that they have a better long-term outcomes. We also want to make sure that this service runs for a period of time to leave a legacy within the children's services, so it becomes common practice going forward. What we often get with 12-month periods of work, and I've experienced this professionally, is it becomes an instant response to an issue. What we are really hopeful for is this innovate approach becomes an embedded element of practice within Middlesbrough Council. So we will be consciously looking at our outcomes in terms of children's services for long-term external care and significantly managing the budget constraints that we are fighting for that particular service. So the report today is for the executive to approve another 24 months of this specific service, and for us to add that into the current children's services as we are currently delivering. It is also an essential part of our improvement plan and plays a significant part in the journey with external providers. So on that note, I would like to hand over to yourself, Chair, and the rest of the executive if they have any questions to bring forward.
That's great, thank you. Great overview. And I mean, some investment save, you know, the idea, I think you said £380,000 to potentially deliver a better service and save a much bigger sum. I could see the exec member for finance and the head of finance starting to look excited there. So that sounds great. It's all about everything we're doing now is about trying to deliver more with less money, isn't it, in the next few years? So this sounds really exciting. Any exec members with comments or questions on this? There we go. Ask member for finance. Go on. Let's hear from Chris Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. What I'd like to say is that this is not just about the money. This is about the children as well. And for this Invest to Save, we are making the best of what we can with the money, but we also getting the best for the children. The children are going to end up in the right places. We're moving them around from various places out of Middlesbrough and making sure that everything is better for the children. Thank you, Chair.
Fantastic. See, Councillor McCabe would like to speak. Please go ahead, Dennis.
I endorse this. I think it's fantastic what the team's done and the savings they're making, and it just goes to show a fresh look at things does pay benefits, and it is all about the kids, and we're going to give them what they're well deserved, and we're the leading light in this area at the moment. So well done, team.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? I can't see some of the faces. If anybody else wants to speak, please pipe up now. Okay, that's great. I know everyone's had the notes beforehand. Everyone just listened, had the chance to ask questions. That's all noted. That's great. Thank you. Now we move on to item 10, which is the Exec Member for Adult Social Care and Public Health, Councillor Davison. about the re-procurement of Tees Integrated Sexual Health Service. Please go ahead, Dorothy.
Yes, today the purpose of the report is to seek approval from the executive for re-procurement of a Tees Integrated Sexual Health Service with a view to commence the new service on the 1st of August 2021 for a period of 3 years. In August 2016, the Sexual Health Service was recommissioned to deliver an integrated service across Teesside for 5 years. Unfortunately, this is not possible. The successful bidder then does not want to pursue another 24 months. Therefore, we need to procure this and find another provider. In Tees open access sexual health services are commissioned by 6 different commissioning bodies, which are Hartlepool, Redcar, Stockton, ourselves, NHS Tees Valley, and the NHS England Services. Therefore, I would ask the executive to accept this. If our public health practitioner, Esther, would like to add anything, I would be most obliged if it's possible.
Thank you, Chairs. Just to add that we had the service jointly commissioned when we had the Tees Valley Clinical Shared Public Health Shared Service in place. And the original contract from 2016 was a 5-year contract with a +2+2 arrangement in place. We've had conversation with the current provider, bearing in mind the fact that we're going through a COVID outbreak, about extending using a 24-month extension to help us to reshape the service again. In the past, there have been some legal concerns around accommodation challenge with the current provider, and that's not been resolved, and therefore we have to go out and re-procure again. We've looked at different options about whether or not to commission jointly again as an integrated service or to go solo by each local authority. When we work out the finances, if we were to go on our own, that would cost us far more than what we have within our budgets. So the best option for us is to commission as an integrated model. We've also done, we've also revised our sexual health needs assessment, which has given us a better understanding of the changing trends and patterns of sexual health diseases at the moment, and preferences for accessing services within our population, which is influencing the new service development, the service specification that we are developing to go out to procurement. So as Councillor Davison's already said, our proposal is to seek permission from the executive to be able to go out jointly with our other partners in the other local authorities and the NHS to re-procure the service. I'll pause here for any questions.
Thank you, Esther and Dorothy. Anybody got any questions from the exec? Okay, I think that's all. Thank you. Does anybody, I think this is something we have to vote on. Does anybody wish to vote against this? No. Anybody wish to abstain? No. Okay, so that's everybody voting for item 10, the re-procurement of Tees Integrated Sexual Health. That's good. Thank you very much. Moving on now about communities and education, which is Councillor Smiles to talk about the Special Educational Needs and Disabilities Annual Update. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So good afternoon, everybody. This report is to basically provide you with an annual update on our SEND provision, which stands for Special Educational Needs and Disabilities. There were approximately 1,300 young people in Middlesbrough who require an education, health and care plan, and this figure continues to rise in Middlesbrough and across the country. In March 2017, our whole area was inspected for its SEND provision, and we as an area were issued with a written statement of action to address significant concerns. But in July 2019, it was decided that we no longer needed formal monitoring, so that was obviously great news. on our progress. We continue to make sure that children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities have their needs met. And this is despite the obvious challenges to that caused by COVID. And the report includes loads of fantastic information about what we have been doing. We work with a group called Parents for Change, who I had the honour of meeting a couple of weeks ago. They're really passionate parents who are determined to get the absolute best for our young people. The other sort of highlights within the report are that they were getting a new free school for those with severe learning difficulties at Nature's World. This is due for opening in 2022. There's a new autism provision at Acklam Grange and some new places for children with autism at Outwood Academy, Acklam. And we're also redeveloping our early years specialist support service, which was at James Cook and is now at Hemlington Initiative Centre. But there's more information in the report. I just wanted to say a quick thank you to Caroline Cannon, who's our strategic lead for inclusion and specialist support for writing this report. And I know that she's recently given quite a few presentations to councillors about her department, and I know that's appreciated because it helps us understand the picture better. So thank you, and if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them, or Rob Brown, our Director for Education, can assist.
That's great, thank you. Any questions from exec members? That's great. I mean, everyone's had advance notice about the report, and Mika's just given an overview. Everyone could ask a question, so I'll take it that we have all noted that well. Thank you very much. And the next point is the same department, and it's item 12. It's the place planning strategy update. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so this is an update on our place planning strategy, which will give you a brief update on trends that impact school places. So obviously we don't look after all schools. There's obviously lots of schools that are part of academies or multi-academy trusts, but we do as a council have a statutory duty to make sure that all pupils in Middlesbrough are assured of a school place. There was trouble, I don't know if you remember, there was a trouble meeting that demand for secondary places a couple of years ago. And this strategy looks to deal with that and spot any trends and plan ahead to help anything like that happening again. So you will have read the report, but just to take a few highlights from it, we now have 151 new primary places in the town. Outwood Academy Riverside is now open, and it looks like students are settling really well at that school. And there are 8 new places for those with severe learning difficulties at Priory Woods. And there's also, as I mentioned in my last report, there's a new base for those with autism at Acklam Grange School. So some of the trends are actual births were 100 lower in 2018-19 than what was predicted. So that'll obviously have an impact on our primary school places, meaning that there'll be more available. And the need for secondary school places will also slightly reduce, taking into account the current trends. But we will continue to keep a close eye on it because it's an ever-changing picture, and we'll plan accordingly. So I think it's just to note this report rather than vote, but I'll happily take any questions.
That's great, thank you. Any exec members with questions? Okay, again, this was a note, and everyone's had the written material on this, and everyone's had a chance to ask questions. So we'll take it that the report is noted. Thank you very much for that. The next one would be item 13, which we did first, which on to item 14, which is the town centre strategy. Ashley Waters going to deliver us this info, and we'll vote on it. Go ahead, please, Ashley.
Thank you, Mayor. Apologies if I do manage to dip out here, my signal has been awful. So today we're looking for the executive to approve the development of a new town centre strategy for Middlesbrough, which will acknowledge the impact that COVID-19's had and provides us with a new framework for the comprehensive transition of function of uses in the town centre. The principle of the strategic alignment of any external funding opportunities which may be forthcoming, i.e. Town Centre Fund and future High Street Fund, to aid the delivery of the objectives of a revised town centre strategy. So what we're looking for is, like I say, to approve the development of this. Prior to this, we know the town centres have been struggling for a long time up and down the country, and COVID again is going to have had a detrimental impact on all the town centres, and this is really important that we now make sure that we shore this up and make sure that we have that town centre. We do seem to be the capital of the Tees Valley in terms of our town centre, and it's really important that we retain that. We've seen what's happened to other town centres in the area, and I believe this report will help us ensure that we have a town centre for a long time going forward. Obviously, there's been shocks, the huge economic shock to the town centre and the challenges that we faced. But by implementing this, we're looking to revitalise that different areas of the town centre in moving forward and just making it a better place, a more shopper-friendly, leisure-orientated place within the town centre. We obviously, as part of the Mayor's objective, we want to have urban living as well, and this all comes into play with regards to this report. I'm sure you've all seen the report. I'm quite happy to take any questions on this.
Nothing from me, thank you. Anybody else with any questions or comments? Okay. My notes, it says that this is a report to vote on. So with that in mind, I'll ask if anybody wishes to vote against. No. Thank you. Would wish to abstain? So that's two is voting for. Thank you for that. That's good. On to number 15, which is the revenue capital budget projected outturn position at Q2, and this is from our exec member for finance, Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. As reported in the 2021 Q1 projected outturn report and the medium-term financial plan, the COVID-19 financial pressures are being monitored separately from the normal non-COVID-19 position, and these are reported separately in paragraphs 41 and 67. As previously reported to Executive, a number of controls were implemented in 2019-20 to minimise overspending across the council in the year, and these remain in place for 2020-21. Specifically, a vacancy control process overseen by the corporate management team, checks against proposed expenditure of over £5,000 by the procurement team, and strong controls over staff travel, the ordering of stationery, and use of first-class posts. As you can see from this very detailed report, we have ended Q2 with a projected underspend of £9,000 on non-COVID elements, which, considering what we are going through at this particular time, is a very good position to be in. I am asking that the Executive notes the 2021 revenue underspend, that the Executive notes the proposed use of the General Fund Reserve as approved by Council on the 2nd of September 2020 to fund the total projected overspend in 2020-21, that Executive approves the proposed revenue budget variance over 150,000 shown in Appendix 1, and that the Executive notes the 2021 capital budget Q2 predicted outturn of 5363 million against a budget of 55.019 million, driven in the main by delays resulting from COVID-19, and approves the proposed revised investment strategy to 22-23 at Appendix 2. And sorry, there's a lot of things to be noted and approved on this, Chair, but that's the way it is, I'm afraid.
Thank you very much for that. Any questions or comments from exec members? Thank you. There are a number of points to note, and as I said earlier, you know, we've all had the full notes in advance. Everyone's had the chance to talk, so I'll take it that everything is noted. When it comes to the vote, would anybody like to vote against this? Thank you. Anybody like to abstain? Good, thank you. So we'll take that to vote for. Thank you very much. On to the next item, which is item 16, which is again is a report to note actually, and this is Nunthorpe Grange Farm Disposal Part A.
Thank you, Chair. And as you say, there are two parts to this report. Part A we will just discuss here, and then we will need to go exempt for Part B. So Nunthorpe Grange Farm Disposal Part A. This is a parcel of land, and it is now an unused agricultural hoarding situated at Nunthorpe Grange Farm, next to the former farmhouse yard and buildings. An asset disposal case, for business case, confirming the status of the subject land as surplus to operational council requirements, is attached in Part B of this report. The use of the site for the purposes of religious worship as being proposed by the buyer is a preferred option and will save this land from housing development in the future, which I know that Nunthorpe people are always trying to save their green spaces. So I myself have always believed that we should look after our green spaces, and this is one way to do that. I am asking the executive that the information contained in Part A of the report be noted, and that the decision be taken once all the financial or exempt information contained in Part B of the report has been considered. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'll open up to exec members for questions. I can see that Councillor Smiles wants to come in. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So I've obviously raised significant concerns about this and will not be voting for it. My main concern is that there's a perfectly good Brethren Hall on Gypsy Lane, and I'm really upset that we'd sell our land on the rural edge of the town to allow a new hall to be built. I'm also concerned about the housing that's planned for the existing site. We haven't got the right infrastructure, including space in our classrooms and community facilities. And I actually think that residents could possibly be more open to a proposal like this if we were getting something out of the deal, but we're not. We're just getting rid of some of our land, and in addition to that, more housing. So Nunthorpe residents aren't benefiting from this in any way whatsoever. I've also asked residents about their thoughts on this. There was lots of reaction, and I promised I'd pass those thoughts on. So in addition to my own concerns, the other concerns were that this hall wouldn't be for the whole community, it would be just for a religious group, that there's been a lack of detail provided to the public, and like I'd said before, that it could mean extra houses on Gypsy Lane and development on rural land. So I'll leave it there for now, but I'll express more when we go into the closed session.
Thank you for that. Any other questions?
Chair, can I make a comment?
Yes,
Chair?
please. Yeah.
Can I just ask, can you clarify my position when you're excluding the press and public? Am I excluded as well? Thank you, Chair.
I think we took advice on this last time, and I think that basically, due to the confidential nature, we should and we can. But I think there was a one-off incident, not incident, that's the wrong word. There was a one-off occasion a little while ago where we allowed you to stay, I think, if I remember correctly. I don't know whether Charlotte Benjamin, our head of legal, is still on the call, but that's my understanding, is that we can and arguably should exclude you from the sensitive parts of the of the discussion later on. Charlotte.
Chair, the stance you take on this is dependent upon whether, first of all, there's a vote as to this matter being heard without the press and public. If you, as an executive, do decide to hear the matter without the press and the public, then it's at the chair's discretion as to whether additional members are allowed to stay. It's not necessarily recommended. It's a matter for you and the executive as to whether you feel that there is information which it wouldn't be appropriate for Councillor Thompson, as the chair of Overview and Scrutiny, to hear. So the presumption would be, I suppose, to as a fellow member to allow, but then it's a matter for you to determine whether the material is of such a sensitive nature that it's not appropriate for it to stay.
Okay, thank you. I think because we're talking about is commercially, potentially sense. Is at any point is open to scrutiny by OSB. So Janet, you will get a chance to find out what has been looked at, what's been discussed, if anything, what's been decided, and be able to challenge that. But I think for the purpose of discussion, we will exclude you from the meeting.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions or comments? From me, actually, to Mika, and I guess to I suppose Richard Horniman. Mika, have you about whether some of the proceeds could be channeled towards the local community?
I haven't asked Richard, no.
Okay, so that's something we could perhaps discuss in the next.
There's a possibility of that. That would be certainly something back for the Nunthorpe residents and community.
Okay, well, thanks for your strong opinions. I think opinion amongst us is mixed, and we're all aware of the sensitivities, and there's no decision being made right now on this. It's actually a matter for noting, I think. Is that right? Is that, Sylvia, is this an item to note?
That's correct. Just noted on this one.
Okay, so we note the we note the notes, and we acknowledge the sensitivities around it. We acknowledge Councillor Smiles' comments, and we'll all discuss privately later on. Okay, that concludes 16. Part 17 was the chance for any of the relevant and urgent business to be brought in. Anybody got any relevant and urgent business that they wish to bring up?
Chair, it was just whether you wanted to consider the carving results from OSB, and whether you want to consider the issue that was referred back to the executive for reconsideration, and whether you want to discuss that here and now at the executive, or whether you would prefer that an additional meeting is an extraordinary executive meeting is held to discuss the matter further at an alternative date.
Can I actually say something on that, Mayor?
Yes, chip in. Please chip in.
Obviously, I was part of the OSB yesterday and clearly highlighted the fact that a full report was presented at the previous executive with the relevant business cases, and also done by the TVCA. By OSB actually rejecting this and sending it back, I feel it's a kick in the face to our executive, our mayor, but also the Tees Valley mayor, that the work that they have done in the TVCA. I think it's been clearly documented in the report. It is a very, very well done report. And I disagree with what was actually sent from OSB yesterday and the findings of that.
Okay, thank you. I think the OSB on this, yes. I mean, some questions came forward. I think what became clear is that perhaps, with a bit more time, the report could have been written with a little bit more information to reassure some of the members that had questions. I think at the meeting we dealt with all of the questions that were raised. I think at the meeting we made it clear why the money will need to be spent, why delaying the money spending the money now won't save any money, and why we shouldn't delay working out the best solution for our office requirements and looking after our staff. I can see that our Director of Region would like to speak. So Richard, please go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, it's just to say that I think we're at cross purposes here. The one Ashley's referring to was yesterday's OSB. The one that I think we need to comment on today is the one from Friday, just in case there's any confusion there.
I was just going to come in and say that you'd got it wrong. It wasn't yesterday's meeting. It was Friday's.
Apologies then. Thank you.
That's right. I think on Friday what we said was that, well, what people had said was they would like to have seen a report that if the writer had had a little bit more time, there would have been a bit more info. I think we provided all of the info at the meeting. I think we dispelled some of the misconceptions and misunderstandings, and delaying moving forward now with that potential spend, and is a potential spend of money, absolutely won't save the council any money. And also what was clear is that some people wanted us to use council staff instead of hiring consultants. We can't do that. We don't have the skill set. We don't have the resources to train people and put them through additional degrees, which take 3 or 4 years. So to get this done, we absolutely have to press ahead. Our staff deserve better building, the environment deserves a better building, and the town deserves better buildings. So we're going to stick with our original plan, and we are going to examine the best options for a new building for Middlesbrough Council. So that concludes that part. Thank you. If there are any press or non-exec members, non-officer people present, if they could please exit the meeting.
If you bear with me, Chair, I'll advise everybody when the live stream to YouTube has ended.
Chair, can I just ask that we take a vote to say that we would plan to exclude the press and public?
Oh, I see. Okay, my mistake. So we should have a vote on that. Does anybody here vote against? So I propose that we exclude the press and the public from this point. Does anybody vote against excluding the press and the public? Okay, it's Councillor Smiles. Can't see anybody else. Does anybody wish to abstain from the vote, excluding the press and the public? Okay, so in that case, as a majority, we approve excluding the press and the public. And what I'll say again, anything that we do or decide will become publicly available. That the commercially sensitive nature of some of it means that we cannot have an open, active and honest discussion without prejudicing council finances. Okay, so we're going to press ahead now with the exclusion of the press ahead.
Chair, I'll just confirm when the YouTube stream ends.